All right, and those are some of the stories making headlines in business. But now to further give us a bigger picture on what is happening in the market, Steve Biko, thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure.
Steve is a financial analyst. Do we say markets analyst as well? And he has an idea about what exactly is happening in the markets today. I'll start by the companies that have released their half-year results. We're looking at Kenya Power. We're looking at Mumias Sugar Company as well. That is not doing too well either. Kenya Power is not doing well at all, despite the fact that they registered some growth as well. But what exactly is happening in the markets? Let's start with the stocks.
For the last 1 year, we've been talking about macroeconomic indicators not performing really well, and everyone has been dismissing that. We've seen positive results coming out saying, the economy is growing. But when you look at how Mumias performed, and we look at Kenya Power is a monopoly in essence. So despite the expansion, despite costs of distribution and upgrading the equipment to give more power, they should be doing better. But having a 10% drop, in terms of profit growth, actually indicates to you that there's something wrong with the economy, because such a company should not at any given time be reporting decrease in profits. And for me, I think energy is a key component of the economy. So I believe we need to look at the key macroeconomic indicators. We need to look at manufacturing, because it's a big component that can actually be able to boost the returns for Kenya Power. Right. And if there's a drop in Kenya Power, that means then the ripple effect is actually very, very specific. Manufacturing is not doing very well. Construction doesn't have a really key component to play in terms of the realm of economic growth. And agriculture as a component of economic growth, we've seen there's been no significant development in the sector. Despite huge infrastructure development, I think in terms of going forward, when you look at housing finance, reporting a 1.2 billion growth, it shows you that the construction sector is actually doing very well. Right. And it's the only thing that's actually been doing very well vis-a-vis the other key aspects of the economy. When you look at Mumias, it's supposed to give an indication of the agricultural sector. When you look at Chase Bank, it's not listed, but it gives you how the private sector is actually performing. Right. So it tells you that there is an issue that's actually happening in the economy that needs to be addressed, and we'll not be able to address it by looking at positive numbers from World Bank and from the IMF. Yeah.
All right, and let's talk about the retail industry right now. There seems to be a lot that is going on, and I think half of it can be explained by what has transpired throughout the week. If you have been paying attention to, I'm sure you have been paying attention to it, the dismissal of Tuskys CEO, and one would actually look at this in two ways: that it's a family business, but also that it's a retail chain, or at least it is a chain of supermarkets. But what do you make out of what's happening in the retail industry?
I think we need to put the retail business into perspective. What's happening to Tuskys is not new to the sector. Every other brand in the sector has a similar problem. And most of the businesses in the retail sector are all family. And we're seeing that they're now being managed by second and third generation. And it's an issue of corporate governance across the country. It's an issue that we've seen with, when you look at what's happening at Mumias, when you look at what happened at CMC, it's the same story. And for me, I think instead of looking at what's happened at Tuskys, we need to look at how best can such businesses actually be governed better. Because for me, I think Tuskys can emerge out of this better and bigger, because look, they employ over 6,000 people.
Right.
This is a number that you cannot really ignore. And for a brand like that to enter into turbulence, that is expected. So for me, I think the retail sector gives us a purview of what's happening in terms of corporate governance, and the fact that we know that we've seen Naivas. They have a similar issue in court. Same to Nakumatt. We've seen Uchumi. We've seen the issue of suppliers and the like. And the interesting bit is we've seen the interest of foreign players trying to get into the business. So you also need to look at the element and the influence of outside external factors. And for me, I think what's happening to Tuskys is not here nor there. I think when you look at their current business, the second largest distributorship, I think even they're bigger than Nakumatt in terms of being able to push normal products like milk, bread, sugar. Right. So when you're able to break down in terms of how just big the chain is, then you can actually be able to understand the significance of the brand into our economy. And for me, I think most of us are focused on manufacturing, agriculture. We're not really dealt on looking at the challenges of the retail sector. And I think this is the time that we actually need to look at this. And for me, this should be an issue that we need to look at. You see, when a brand has 6,000 employees, then it's an issue that you cannot dismiss it. And every side has a story. And I think the media needs to be able to get all sides of the story before pushing, because you can push one side of the story and break a brand that's actually doing a lot more for the country.
But when you look at these chains of supermarkets, Uchumi as well, you know, we remember that Siano as well is now actually under investigation at the moment by ISPEC for what they are terming abuse of office and misconduct. And when you look at what just happened to Tuskys CEO, or at least the recently dismissed CEO, that is Dan, you realize that he's also almost being accused of just about the same thing. And he's being accused of abuse of office, nepotism, and also, I guess, misconduct. But what do you make out of the retail industry in that perspective?
I like to put the Tuskys issue in perspective. One, I think what the media needs to do is they need to focus on where the communication is coming from. And I think the media needs to focus on getting the information from the board of directors. And for me, I think it's premature and does disservice to the brand when we talk about it without really looking at the board of directors, because they're the ones managing the brand. So for me, I think the Dan's issue is not here nor there, because we need to look at what the chairman of the board has said and what they're communicating. And for me, I think that they have a structure that's actually going to look at this. But you see, it puts in focus the issue of supply. It puts in focus the issue of human resource. It's put in focus the issue of corporate governance. And what's happening at Tuskys puts in sharp focus what's happening actually at Uchumi. And we saw what's happening to Siano. Many people said, you know, he was the biggest supplier, but I think we need to look. I think when you go to the register of companies, you can be able to tell who owns what. And I think when he was made CEO, the board if you're accusing Siano of this, then the board is culpable too, because they must have been aware of what's happening. So for me, I think we are missing a lot of vital information in all these issues that can be able to help us make better judgment to issues. And for me, I think at the end of the day, it's a trillion sector. I mean, Tuskys is worth over 50 billion.
Yes.
In terms of you know, when you look at the revenues, supplies, and how much money that they're making in. So 50 billion, you're looking at a business whereby anyone with an interest would like to fight for it. Same to Uchumi. Uchumi is a brand that we've all grown up knowing. Uchumi is a brand that all of us have an endearment to, and Uchumi has one significant aspect that all of us want. It's property issue. They have a very keen, high-end property value in town on Ngong Road, and there've been rumor that a lot of people with a keen interest in it want these particular properties. So we need to put issues in perspective for us to understand. And this is what the media and business journalists are failing, not being able to understand.
That is what we need to do to separate the two and be able to understand exactly what's going on. Well, thanks a lot.